Hey everybody, what's up? This is CPU01, and in this video, I'll be going over the newest hero in Overwatch, Orisa. So Orisa is going to be the 6th tank character in the game, and she will be the 2nd anchor tank in addition to Reinhardt. And thus, she will be a hero around which your allies will generally cluster in order to engage with the enemy team. In essence, she will be another facilitator for teamfights. Now, Orisa has some really neat abilities, including her fusion driver, which is a linear projectile rifle that shoots 12 rounds per second and does 12 damage per shot. She also has 200 ammo per magazine, but has a very long reload time of 2.5 seconds. Also, it is important to note that she has no damage falloff, however, so her gun is very effective at any range. I'd recommend to reload as infrequently as possible due to the long reload time. Either use the entire magazine or reload when safe, for example after winning a team fight. Orisa's second ability is her halt ability, which again is another linear projectile. However, it is a very slow moving orb that pulls enemies into it from a radius of 7.5 meters. The cooldown lasts for 8 seconds and is very good for catching enemies out of position. The halt ability can be shot through an enemy shield, but cannot pull enemies through that shield. It can also pull enemies off of the map, away from cover, into choke points, and away from health packs. Orisa's next ability is her Fortify ability, which reduces incoming damage to her by 50%. It lasts for 4 seconds and has a cooldown of 10 seconds. It does not affect allies or enemy ultimate effects on allies behind her, like Earthshatter or Gravitron. It blocks many hero abilities that inflict moving penalties like stuns, knockbacks, or slowdowns. Some examples of these are May's Primary Fire, Symmetra's Alternate Fire, Pharah's Concussive Blast, Reinhardt's Pin, Roadhog's Hook, etc., etc. It is also important to note that her Fortify ability can prevent some enemy ultimate abilities like Earthshatter or Gravitron. You can also use it as a tanking mechanism or an escape strategy. It can be very effective in either situation. Her next ability is her Protective Barrier. This is an arcing shield that has 900 health and lasts for 20 seconds. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds, and even though the duration surpasses the cooldown length, you cannot have multiple barriers out at one time. Barriers do stick around after Orisa dies, so these can have effects on preventing enemy fire on your teammates even after you die. Now, Orisa's Supercharger ultimate ability is a drum that gets placed at her feet and has 200 health. It increases allies' damage output within a 25-meter radius by 50%. It lasts for 15 seconds and requires 1500 points of ult charge. I'd recommend placing this behind a corner or a shield to prevent it from being destroyed. It is also very weak to flankers, snipers, Reinhardt's Fire Strike, as well as Symmetra's Alternate Fire. Also, the Supercharger can be affected by Sombra's EMP, but will reinitialize after the effects of the EMP wear off. The damage boost caused by the Supercharger ultimate does stack with Ana's Nano Boost, and can be used in combination with that for high amounts of damage. Orisa is a very strong damage dealer who is effective when suppressing enemies at a choke point. She functions best with a team that coordinates around her abilities by grouping up behind her shield, targeting enemies caught out of position by her halt ability, using Supercharger to gain the upper hand in a team fight, and help ensure that you win that team fight. Teams should make sure to coordinate their movements and engagements around Orisa and her abilities accordingly. Her Fortify ability allows her to take heavy damage for a short period of time, as well, which is especially useful when waiting for healers or after the barrier breaks. Orisa can use her halt ability to catch enemies out of position and bring them to a standstill, allowing her and her allies to fire upon them. Teams should also combine abilities with Orisa's Fortify, like Hanzo's Scatter Arrow, Junkrat's Mine, Reinhardt's Fire Strike, Soldier's Helix Rockets, in order to increase their effectiveness, while these enemies are trapped in the halt ability. Orisa is very weak against flankers, and her fusion driver cannot deal with multiple enemies at close range. Because she has such low mobility, Tracers, Genjis, and Sombras will have a very easy time of dealing with her. Orisa is also weak against snipers at very long range, as her weapon is a projectile, and only does significant amounts of damage while sustaining hits. Widowmaker and Hanzo can be effective at killing her from very long range. So some general tips that I have for your own Orisa play is that when you're engaged against a group of enemies, it is best to retreat without firing back, as decreased mobility while shooting leaves Orisa exposed and vulnerable to heavy damage from enemies. Use the halt ability to take enemies away from high ground, away from cover or health packs, or to pull them into choke points. You can also use the halt ability to pull a pulse bombed enemy towards their team, and thus increase Tracer's kills with her ultimate. Stand in front of a barrier with Fortify up to prolong the protective barrier's life. You can also keep an enemy Reinhardt out of position with your halt ability, and try to disrupt an enemy Reinhardt as much as possible with this ability. You can also use your halt ability to catch flankers such as Tracer or Genji, so that Roadhog can easily hook them. Now there are many other applications of Orisa's very cool abilities. If you have any tips of your own, please feel free to comment below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.